change it, there's no sense in going into the rehab there. If you go to the 12-step program, the first step is you got to say, well, I need some help here, or if you want to go to the church, you got to say, oh, I'm a sinner. The first step is to say, be realistic and look at the situation and say, well, this is not what we want.
It seems to me like a lot of people in West Fork aren't aware of their options either, how they could change things. If they just seem to be these little empire builders running the city.
Well, they felt excluded, so they've just ignored it. So they walk away. So if you go for years and years, and like on the planning commission, you have a planning commission that the same people are running it, and they didn't even meet for 2 years, and so they've got a guy that's been running the show there for 40 years almost.
Yeah.
Why should people volunteer their time to go up on the planning commission or something like that when they say, well, the other guys, they're going to handle that. They don't even want us in there.
I know.
And they had a water commission that had 3 members. The water commission down there is really some of what goes on in West Fork. Some of what goes on in West Fork, I would call is a structural corruption, in that they have the organizational structure is such that there's no accountability.
Right.
And so they've created this water department back in '72 that is not. It's hard to see the connection between the city government and they're what they call an enterprise entity or something. They're supposed to generate their own income from their things, much like an airport authority or the water department. So for years they had a 3-member commission with 8-year terms, and the guys were on had been there for 3 terms. And they'd go for years and wouldn't meet. And as things happened, then of course this management got overwhelming for them, and then they had to. It got so bad that in one night, and no one knew any of this before there was a newspaper. I have to say, and Susan McCarthy got in there and was really in some of the best investigative stuff, and getting in there and studying documents and find out that the water department had gone over a 4-year period, had eaten up $250,000. Then they were into their bond reserve, and then one Friday night at payroll, they're in there trying to pull money out of the general fund to make payroll. And and then 2 weeks before that, they were standing up in front of the council saying, "Everything's okay. We're okay." And
I'll tell you what, there's a city that really needs some cameras in the meeting rooms.
It would change the whole thing.
It would.
And
it would.
I took me there one time, a little flip video, but they have sound problems.
Oh, man, yeah.
Then they have it's just they have 8 council members that are dead set against the mayor. The mayor was elected. The last election they had was I think 354 to 350.
Yeah.
And she is definitely a reform mayor. She's done a lot for the city with the recycle center and the farmers market and got all that going. And but she wants to change. She wants to bring the thing up into 21st century standards and policies and accountability, transparency, and there's 350 that are wanting to stay with the old system
because they don't know any better, or they don't trust the new world, or what?
4 of them are definitely tied to the previous mayor, who Frances Himes, the new mayor, who he defeated her, and 3 of them were appointed by her, one very close, and they just have I don't really know why. This is the way we've always done it. We don't want all these newfangled ideas. We live here because, we have freedom. We can do what we want to do.
Yeah, we live here because it's not Fayetteville.
Yeah, there's that.
There's that. We live here because it's not Fayetteville.
There's this idea of, we do what we want down here. We're not bothered with all those rules and regulations.
Right, and they don't realize that, maybe there's a reason that some of those rules and regulations were put in place.
Mm-hmm. Zoning, for example, they haven't really come to grips with zoning.
Right. And
so one of the recent things, they had a fellow come to town a few years ago who is an avid libertarian, I guess you'd say, and he got himself on the planning commission and proceeded to sue the mayor over a property dispute, and then got the planning commission. Well, they rejected his idea to have his 2 acres zoned commercial. It's in the middle of a residential. So the planning commission, on a close vote, said, no, we're not going to do that. We appealed it to the city council, and they all stood behind him. So the city council all said, well, yeah, we'll do spot zoning. And the mayor had to veto that and say, you guys got to think this over, and had to have the city attorney explain what was going on here. But they were lined up against her. It is you talk about obstructionism in Washington with Obama and the Republicans.
It's like I read about too, and it's like it's some of they're not tuned into the rest of the world. It's like they don't understand planning. It's like they don't understand American politics. It's like they just understand these issues of, or maybe they think United Nations is trying to send troops into the town or something.
Well, you know, what's funny, the guy that wanted the chairman of the planning commission who wanted the 2 acres, he also wants to land his helicopter in his front yard. Well, you know, the thing is, in his argument, is that all the great businesses got started in the garage, you know, like Bill Gates.
Okay. Is he running a rescue service or something?
He implied that one time, but we checked into that, and they don't want anything to do with him. You know, I mean, they have their own rescue. I mean, they have the National Guard, and they have their county thing, and so, right.
Okay.
So anyway, that's all going on down there, and you know, you have to think. When I got to looking at it, you know, some of what from my academic background, I think of myself like an anthropologist going into a little village and trying to figure out, you know, the tribal council, who's on that, and who's related to who, and the relationship network is interesting. But you know, you have to say, Northwest Arkansas went through a big boom,
right?
And you would have to work at not being sucked into that boom.
Yes.
And West Fork didn't get into it. I mean, they did not grow. They're the lowest growing city in the county.
And as always, when I talk I've talked to some landowners from West Fork, and they seem kind of proud of it, even though their property their property values suck. You know, they seem kind of proud of it. You know?
That's the diversity is our strength, I guess. You know, they got different ways of thinking about it.
Business is lousy out there.
There's no business.
Yeah, no.
There's no business community.
No.
And so you think, well, here's a town. It's picturesque.
Yeah.
It's got nice, good, hard-working Christian people in it. They got 2 4-lane highways, one on each side, that you don't have to fight the sun going into Fayetteville.
Right.
And you know, they got a little town there. Why wouldn't they grow? It's interesting. It's kind of a phenomenon. They had to have done it intentionally, I think. And so the people of the town, I call them the Lords of the Manor, you know, decided that that's the way they want to do it. They got a Mayberry idea about the town, and we're going to leave it this way, and this is the way we like it, and this is the way we want it. And, you know, start building multi-unit buildings, and you're going to start bringing in who knows what.
Well, it's always a chance that as you can only do that with an intellectually captive community. And I think as more people in the town become aware of what goes on in the outside world, they're going to want zoning. As much as that seems like the United Nations coming into town with their blue helmets, they're going to want their town to be a good town.
I think one of the other big kind of arguments and that they have to be aware of is this code violations and code enforcement.
Right.
On you know, and it's going on in the county right now where there's a new ordinance about cleaning up your property.
Yeah.
And there's that fight between, it goes all on everywhere. This is my property. I'll do whatever I want to do.
Right. I'll park 5 cars on my front lawn.
And I'll do whatever I want, and it's my property. Or are we in this together? And you know, what if your property affects mine? So they have a what they call a what do they call it? Complaint-driven code enforcement.
Right.
So that means your neighbor against neighbor. That means,
oh boy,
you know, if you want your neighbors over there making a big mess, and you have to go make a complaint. They don't have a person that's neutral to come around and say, you know. So and there's a case tonight in the in the West Fork City Court on a junkyard. And I'm anxious to see how that will come out, because once these things get going, then there is no enforcement, because the person who's making the junkyard says, well, look, you can't pick on me. There's all over town, you know. And I don't know if they're realizing that yet, that the town is they have right in the middle of the town, and they call it the four-way, where there's 4 stop signs when you come in off the interstate. They've had a series of dilapidated houses there.
Right. Oh, at some point during this interview, I need to say that I write for the Observer too.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to say that. All right. At some point here, I write for the Observer. There we go. All right. So we know probably that City Hall is not, the people who elected officials, most of them are not pleased with the Washington County Observer.
Well, there's an element in the what do you call it? The power structure there. The Lords of the Manor, who see the Observer as being bad mouthing them, dissing them, and I've tried to explain over several times is that we have a 12-page paper.
Right.
We have everything that a community newspaper could want.
Right.
There's the police reports, there's the obits, there's the school news. There's
You're talking about national, international news. I mean, good
well, we
golly.
try to keep everything local. Everything
Right.
we have is local. I mean,
Yeah.
like you're right. Well, we don't have a commentator from D.C. or
Right.
Los Angeles.
Right.
All local news, local
Yeah.
things. We've got the prom queens, we've got the fluffy
Yeah.
puppies, we got everything.
Right.
And on about 600 words on page 4 is the editorial.
Right.
And it's as though they can't see anything else. So they're saying, well, you're running the town down. I'm, yeah, well,
That
I'm
one
pointing
spot.
things out here.
That one spot.
And when I got into this, I looked in, Googled around, and so things like, how do you start a small town paper? And of course, a lot of them would say, well, stay away from anything controversial. Just,
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if I wanted to have a shopper or something, I'd do that. Or if I wanted an entertainment magazine, I'd do that. But I kind of got into that idea of the press being the watchdog, and afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted sort of thing, and I like that aspect of it. But it was I knew things were, I thought mistakenly probably that, well, they'll put up with my rants about city government and open. My things that I pounded on were my 3 were transparency in government, accountability, and the rule of law.
That seems to be universal. That seems to be something
and
that people could understand.
I'm equally balanced on the conservatives and the liberal points of view. I mean, you're in there on a political spectrum thing.
Right.
We have both points, and plenty of right-wing guys have talked in there. I've never denied a letter to the editor, and I'm proud of that I got both things going on there. But so after we'd been in business for a year and we got into the Press Association, it means that we were able to take legal notices and ordinances so we could get the city business, which was pretty good.
Yeah.
So they voted one night on whether to give us the business, and they voted not to. And
So they were giving you the business.
Yeah, they were giving us the business. So they voted to pay twice as much to do their business with the big city paper than the local paper. And no one, of course, that was good for 2 or 3 editorials right there. And how can you not mock people and make fun of them when they do that on the city council?
It's like that's like throwing gasoline on the fire. Well, so what about readers? How about readers in West Fork?
I get, that recently, towards the end there was kind of a campaign to say, well, we're going to drop our subscription.
Really?
That's an interesting, amongst the, people are, when you have the Lords of the Manor, they can influence people. People don't want to cross them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's an interesting thing I've realized about internet newspaper.
Yeah.
Is that, they can have a campaign and say, well, we don't like what he said, so let's just cancel our subscription. We'll show him. We won't give him the city business and such as that. Some people go along with that because they don't want to upset the Lords of the Manor, and the kids go to school with them, and they don't want sitting in the wrong pew in church or something like that. And so they'll go along with it. Whereas the internet, they won't. You know what I mean? They're
the
sitting
Lords
at
of
home.
the Manor can't come in your house.
Yeah, that's right. You can't cancel that subscription unless you throw out your computer.
Right.
So it's an interesting kind of thing. I hadn't really thought that much about it as far as getting my message out of transparency and accountability and rule of law.
Yeah.
So that's interesting how that'll play out. But there was people. Another thing I don't understand about that is people will say, I read something, and in fact. Another one of our columnists wrote a letter to the big city paper about the Hefner Affair, and he had said, if they started a campaign to end freedom of information, I'd be the first to sign up.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And he also said, and I noticed he said, well, I wanted to cancel my subscription but my wife told me not to or something.
God.
But I thought, now here it is. This is the same thing. You got a newspaper. It has all these things in it. There's the police reports. There's this and that. There's the stories. There's the everything. And you got something over here. So what you want to do, they wrote an editorial you don't like, so you want to punish them financially, because when you say you're canceling your subscription, you're saying I want to punish you. You're saying I'm going to withdraw my financial support of your publication. That's what you're saying.
And who you're hurting? You're hurting yourself because you don't know what the hell's going on in the world.
Well, yeah, and so you're hurting what the intuitives like. Well, a guy has got a different opinion than you.
Yeah.
You don't want to throw out all the other stuff that's riding on that in that paper.
It's like I read the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. I read the letters to the editor every day, and it's like all these people demand, that John Brummett be taken out. Who's a column appears every few days, right? If there's one liberal columnists, I mean, they would just be literally demanding that their column be taken out. It's like if there's just one voice out there, it just incenses some people.
Mm-hmm. And they'll throw the baby out with the bathwater there too.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll do it. So, I mean, there's plenty of people, I don't like their political opinions, but, it gets back to that sociological question of, well, why can't everybody be just like me?
but people who cancel subscriptions, it's like all they're doing is hurting themselves because they're losing a source of information.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you cancel a subscription to a newspaper,
Mm-hmm.
a local newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's idiotic. I mean, that's just imbecilic, Yeah, people are so proud of themselves. People are so proud of themselves. It's like, oh, I did that. Okay, whatever, dude.
I showed them kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll show them. They won't talk. Anyway, that's what's going on. But
Yeah.
What
What about journalism today as in part of the whole country, though?
I'm not a journalist.
Right. But the state of journalism. What do you think about that?
It's a it's a curious institution.
Yeah.
Like I said, my background is in sociology. Went to university. I went back to school when I was 40 years old, and I was up there it took me about 10 years to do 2 years worth, that kind of thing. And then I finished and went to graduate school, and then they had me doing, I taught a little bit in different,
Right.
at the nursery school and up at the NWAC. And so I look at journalism, and media as from those,
Right.
that lens. And my experience with it has been, it's an interesting image,
Yeah.
I always look at people, I've been different things in my life. I've been a construction guy, been a field hippie, I've been a real estate agent,
Yeah.
and I've been a college teacher and those kinds of things. All those things have their own occupational
Right.
myths, their images, that when you go into the room and, if you say you're a real estate agent, people don't even want to tell you their last name. Right, you want to list their house or something.
Right. I mean, don't give me your email address,
Really. So, and it's the same. It's like if you go in and you say, well, I'm a psychology student, it's different than if you go in and say, I'm an anthropology student.
Right.
So those things carry that. So each of these occupations. So journalism has I think we were talking earlier about journalism movies and stuff. And you go into Netflix, you can put in that genre, which I did, to kind of see how they're different movies about journalists. And you got both sides. You got the one that the journalist is saving the world and opening everything up, and he's the freedom.
All the president's men.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And then the others, they're just scoundrels, and
Absence of malice. Yeah.
So you got all that whole thing going on. The journalists, I think, are we've hired a lot interns. We've had several from the university.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I haven't been impressed.
Yeah.
The journalism department up there has, of course, there's the broadcast people,
Right.
and then there's the PR people, and then there's the print people.
Right.
And so it's such a broad thing. I mean, the broadcast people they're in a different world.
Yes.
I mean, they're considered talent. Like you would in the media. They're
Oh, I know. The people in front of the camera are just, there's not a lot of respect for people in front of the camera.
Right, and they got that, and then the PR people. I mean, the word that we don't use in this society so much as propagandist, which is used in many societies. It refers to advertisers, or it's called propaganda. It just means that you're making your argument based on an emotional